So what's up, everybody? This is kind of fun. This is, it's like first or second one of these I've done in a while, so I'm really looking forward to it. As he mentioned, I'll make sure to leave probably like 15 or 20 minutes. I know that this is a topic that probably a lot of you are thinking about, which is, God, how do we generate more leads? Like, it seems like nothing's working, or we need more, right? Not a single one of you, I said, hey, who doesn't want more leads, is gonna say, no, I'm good, right? So looking forward to this. I'm also gonna spend a little bit of time up front talking about sales in general. What are some of the trends that we're seeing in sales as a whole? Many organizations right now are starting to really rethink their sales process. How do we better interact with customers? So I'll spend the first 5 or 10 minutes talking about that. Thank you for the intro. I run Skaled Consulting. We're a 45-person global consulting firm. So I get a chance, as he mentioned, to talk to hundreds and hundreds of CEOs and sales leaders every single year. So happy to share some of my insights and the different things that we're seeing in the market for sure. And I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn and a bunch of other places as well too. So if you haven't followed me on LinkedIn, just beware. Like, I don't go away. Like, you're gonna see it consistently. I love talking about sales. I'm passionate about sales. I love it. So like I said, so I want to spend a little bit of time here up front talking about selling in 2022 and what's changed, what's the same, what are we seeing organizations looking to do to adapt to a modern customer behavior, right? And if you think about the way that we interact in our day-to-day today, right? If you think about the idea that you could do a click to buy, shows up at your house 6 years ago or 7 years ago, it's like, no, that's not possible, right? But I want you to think about what the B2B sales process looks like, right? The friction points that we put up, the different ways that we say, hey, we got to qualify you before we'll talk to you. But our consumer behavior couldn't be going more the opposite way, which is how do we have as least friction as possible in the process and instead get people to check out and to buy as fast as possible. So the trends, one, spend. Meaning, companies had been reducing their spend, but if you look at, probably a lot of you in this room, like, you're doing okay. Like, people are still buying, right? And so as we think about spend and different things that are happening, we have to start to think about how do we get people to the process faster to where we can uncover what the spend amount looks like. Digital, obviously, most of you are selling through digital channels now. That's not necessarily, I think, like a revolutionary trend, and I'll show some stats here in a second, but when we think about digital engagement, and I'm going to talk about this, how boring is your sales process? Are you selling digitally, or are you staring at that green dot of death and just like getting people to interact? But is it an experience? And so I want to talk about how to do that a little bit more effectively. And then remote. Again, how do we create that kind of in-person experience in a remote environment? I think a lot of people are struggling with this right now, right? A lot of people are struggling with our sales process is just very rigid. We're just standing there. We're still okay that it, like, someone's got like their bed in the background, or like we're okay that sales rep has got this like terrible background. I can tell you we spend $1,000 per employee to help them to redo that, right? Because we want to create an experience for people, right? From a digital standpoint. So buyers, okay? It all starts with the customer. It all starts with the buyer. And I think so often, again, we think about engineering a sales process from our vantage point. Medic, Bant, MedPick, picking up meat, spiced, I don't know, there's a lot, right? The thing you understand is they're more informed than ever, right? So buyers today, and I'll show you some stats about just like how informed buyers are. We've been talking about this trend for a long time. So imagine the experience is, I'm an informed buyer. I've already talked to 2 of my peers about you. I've researched you online. I've already went to my boss and talked to them about getting budget for this. And then I reach out and I have to talk to an inbound SDR. The first call is to qualify me. It's like, come on, dude. You think I'm like, let's go. Like, I'm ready to go. I've done my research, etc. And so right now, many of us, we have to rethink the way that we used to build sales organizations in 2014, 15, 16, and before. How do we understand where someone is and how informed they are when they come in so we can get them to the right place faster, right? And that goes back to the next trend, consensus, right? Gartner puts out new stats every year. It just keeps going up. I think the average company of 100 or 200 people, there's 5 to 7 people involved. Most of our sales processes are engineered to find a champion, right, or find this like mythical champion who's going to shepherd us throughout the organization, identify the economic buyer. The reality is today, like, those are all like the same people. Like, nobody is making a decision in a vacuum ever. Even the person who is the economic buyer is still like, this person could say no, this person could say no, and like the whole thing goes down. And so in this consensus world, We have to think about how we're getting other buying circle and other buyer groups engaged as a part of this and not just being single-threaded. And most people, again, and I'm going to talk about value selling, they want to know that you get it, and they want to be shepherded through the process. They don't want to be qualified. They don't want to be product pitched. Instead, they're like, look, I already know who your competitors are. I already know what your pricing is, right? So these like kind of older school techniques about how we keep away price, how we don't want to shepherd people, we want to put up gates are all going away because customers don't want those things, right? Customers want speed. I already know what I want to do. There's a lot of other people involved. Help me to get this thing done. You know, be that guide, be that helper. And so on the flip side, the sales teams are more and more collaborative. So when we're seeing best-in-class teams in 2022, these teams are becoming experts at looping in customer success early in the process, looping in product early in the process, looping in engineering when they need to, right? It's not just about me on an island doing my sales thing, right? It's about consensus internally as well too, right? Best-in-class teams, there's a ton of data that shows the more people that you have on your side, your close rate goes up. There's a book called Deal Storming that was written 5 or 6 years ago that validates. Technology. How many of you are spending, and just raise your hands, over $500 per month per rep on technology right now? Okay, keep them up. 800? 1,000? 1,500? Okay, so you have people who are spending $1,500 per month per rep. Probably about 3/4 of the room was at 500. If you don't, the way that we will build sales teams in the future and the way that we will increase rep productivity is by understanding how to harness the power of sales technology. I'm going to talk at the very end about just how many, there's over 2,000 sales technologies right now. The problem is they're all so new, we're only getting 20 to 30% of the value out of these tools. They're not hooked up together properly. And what we did is we've almost regressed a little bit to where we're using these tools to automate a bunch of customer interaction points that actually we should be automating the things behind the scenes and letting humans do that part. So I'll talk about that when I talk about outbound. And as I mentioned, customers want someone who's going to make them think, right? A lot of CEOs in this room, who do you take meetings with? People who make you smarter, right? Executives take meetings with people that make them smarter, right? And so when you look at your outbound strategy, you look at your sales strategy, is it about qualification? Is it about product pitching? Or is it about making an executive or a leader smarter? So a couple of like quick tips here around virtual engagement. Like I said, it's pretty boring right now. Most people's Zoom process is, disheveled background, staring, bad camera, bad mic. And again, I want you to think about that. It's like, we're not going back, right? There's no like mythical world where all of a sudden, we're going to go back as a part of this. This stat is like one of my favorite stats. I think it's McKinsey. Before COVID, 92% of B2B buyers, before COVID it was 17%, right, of B2B buyers wanted a virtual sales process. Now it's 92%. Buyers, this is what buyers want, okay? Not what you want. I know a lot of you, I want to get back on the road, right? I want to get back in there with my team in the field. Get back out there, beers, right? Let's be honest, right? I know why we want to go on the road, right? But the point is, this isn't what customers want. They don't want that, right? I'm sure, look, I like steak, golf, wine, I like all that shit, right? But guess what? They want to buy virtually. They instead of us saying, my favorite legacy sales term is a customer asks a question, and the response is, yeah, let's hop on a call. Ugh. It's I think 45% of buying decisions involve millennials. Let's hop on a call? Yuck. Dude, I'm asking for the price sheet. Give me the price sheet. Again, imagine you're trying to buy something online, and it's yeah, let's hop on a call. It's ugh. I had the worst experience ever with Salesforce before the holidays. We were trying to do some expenditures at the end of the year, and we're a $50,000 a year client. We're not a huge Salesforce client. And I was great, where can I give you my credit card? And then it's well, I got to get you to this person, and then I got to get you to this person, and then I got to get you to this person. And then I had to fill out a form with my credit card information and email it to them. I couldn't run my credit card for $50K. It's all I wanted to do, right? I know you want to upsell me and we'd hop on a call. I'm I'm not hopping on a call. Send me the form. I will sign for this now, and then we can hop on a call in 2 weeks, right? So we have to start to think about the way that we're interacting. We're not doing a great job of it today in the sales process. We're not doing a fantastic job of thinking about how do we engage pre-meeting, right? So If I'm having a conversation with you or we've got a call coming up, maybe I'll send you a video with the agenda. That would be different. Maybe I'll send you a video recap after the meeting. That would be different. We're seeing a lot more collaboration tools during the meeting. How many of you have ever used a tool like Miro or Mural? Are you familiar with these types of tools, right? Even Zoom has a whiteboard function now, right? How can we collaborate with digital whiteboards or different ways to interact? You know, how many of you, whenever you were in field sales or whatever, would go to a customer's office, you get on the whiteboard or do something like that? Why aren't we doing that in digital selling? Why aren't we interacting with people? Gong put out a study, I guess it would have been like 3 or 4 weeks ago now, that said people that use presentations on the first call have a lower close rate than people that don't. Why? Because we're tired. When you use a presentation on the first call, what do you think they're doing? They're on email. Click, 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 right? Like, they're on email. Like, what are you guys doing on half those calls? You're on Slack and email, right? So when you think about this, you know, half of a salesperson's job today is I just got to get you off of email. I've got to make this like somewhat interesting enough so like you're actually paying attention and engaged. And so, again, I just want all of you to think about the sales and digital experience. Customer behavior has changed so much in consumer. Everything that is B2C comes to B2B, right? And if you think about, you know, what marketing went through with the technology revolution in like late 2000s, early 2010s, that's what's happening in sales right now. And so as I think about this idea of like, again, like how do we leverage LinkedIn? How do we create an experience? How do we remove barriers? And I'm going to jump into the outbound piece here in a sec, but I just think it's so important that we have to rethink the sales engine that we were sold from predictable revenue, which was built on a process that Salesforce executed in the early 2000s. Imagine how you bought things in 2002. That is what predictable revenue is built on. And I guarantee a lot of you use a predictable revenue model to run your top of funnel. Just this many activities, this many leads, this many this. But yet you're telling me as a rep to be on LinkedIn and interact with people. That's not an activity you can track. So now we're engineering sales teams to only do things that we can track, even though we know that they're low quality, right? We're automating things that we know we shouldn't automate because we were sold a bill of dreams that used to work, but it doesn't anymore. So we have to start to think about reimagining some of these things. For us, value selling is one of the, I guess, like better frameworks that we think's out there. It's not our framework. But what it tries to do here is just align the interest of the company and the interest of the sales rep with the individual. So this is a favorite kind of graph of mine, which is like, what are the things that kill deals, right? And it's misleading information about product, and then if you skip to 3, it's not understanding their own product, right? And then also, when you couple that with not understanding needs. So you combine these things. People say, they don't understand my needs enough, and they don't know enough about their products, which means you can't put together the right solution. If you don't understand the real needs, and you don't even understand what you actually sell, you can't do solution or value selling or command of the message insert methodology, okay? And so again, we've got this world right now where we're like not training as much on techniques like we used to. We're training more on like qualification frameworks and how to move people through and like, did you do this at this step? And not realizing that different buyers are at different parts of the journey. And so as we start to rethink this sales process, again, just value-based selling, if you aren't familiar with it, again, it's a very simple concept. It's a concept of how we understand the needs, and we focus on the needs, which again is not some like revolutionary idea, right? But then it's how do we talk about it and how do we shepherd people through the process. We all know that buyers want an educated salesperson. We all know that buyers prefer a person who's educated on the space. But if we think about, and when I look at onboarding programs, and I look at onboarding programs for organizations that have scaled to 20 reps, to 50, to hundreds of reps, we're not teaching these things. We're kind of teaching a little bit about product. We're overly focusing on teaching them MEDDIC or BANT or insert whatever qualification, and we're not overly engaging or teaching them how to engage with people. And so when you think about a sales process, some of the things Jenny was talking about, even with like the way that we engage with our people, like for some reason in sales, as B2C has become more frictionless, et cetera, B2B has become like less value add. It's like more tactical, more rigid, as opposed to more engaging. And so as I kind of change gears to talk about outbound, I do want you all to think about those things. Again, for us, value-based selling is a pretty easy framework to understand. Again, it's not our framework, so solutions, focus on what's relevant and making it educational. This is what people want, right? They don't need friction. They don't need to hop on a call. They need someone who's going to help them shepherd them through the process and get them the information when they need it. Be there as a resource, be smart and be educated. Where everyone should be spending probably 5 to 10x the time you are, it's just educating your sellers on your customer. When I was head of sales at Glassdoor, I was getting my MBA and I got as a VP of operations at McKesson. I took my team to the facility. We toured the facility. Guess what my team knows now? This is what a VP of operations does. Right? We're not teaching enough about our customer and ways that they engage. Instead, we're focused on the sales process. When the reality is, I think we all know in sales, the more that your team knows about the day-to-day of the people, the more successful they're going to be. Right? And I think it's really tough to be successful without doing that. So think about your experience. I'm telling you, we see it every single day. How many of you have abandoned, in the last week, maybe 2 weeks, have abandoned a shopping cart purchase or like getting there and then went to another product on Amazon or somewhere else because it could ship tomorrow versus 2 or 3 days? Lots of head. Okay, almost everybody is raising their hand. Imagine your sales process today. Inbound lead comes in. Hey, I've done some research. Maybe I haven't, maybe I don't. I don't know. I don't know how much research you're doing, right? And then my first experience is with somebody trying to qualify me. And then I've got 2 or 3. By the way, I've already researched you all in G2. I already know. I've already looked, you. I already know what's happening, okay? I've already talked to my peers about you. And imagine now, like, how much more a frictionless, easy, engaging experience, how that could differentiate you in the market. And so as we think about the process, I think more and more of you as CEOs, as sales leaders, think about the experience. It's not that product is important, but the best product doesn't always win. In fact, usually the best product, like the first product to market, the best product, usually doesn't win. It's usually someone else who catches up later. So on the sales process side, again, more than anything, I just want you all to think. I want you to go back and I want you to think about the way that you're interacting with customers today. Are you removing friction or are you putting up barriers because it's to your benefit? And how could you reimagine that part of it? So I'll lead in because to me, it's like it comes to outbound. It's like not talking about the sales experience would just be a waste. So we did a survey last year, and when we asked, I can't remember what the end was for, 832. We asked how many people are hitting outbound targets. 82% of people said they were not hitting targets. 82%. There's individuals, right? These were individuals. Who's hitting target, who's not, okay? And you're like, all right, well, that's interesting. So then we went in, we dug into the data, and who said this? Interesting part is senior executives, so you can't really see that. All right, so like the top left, that's senior executives, senior titles, directors, VPs. And the right, so it's 56% said no, we're way off. 53% of non-senior. 27% said close, but almost, but not quite, right? And guess what? This is size of company, from 1 to 50 to 5,000. The numbers are identical. Doesn't matter. Big companies, small companies, senior people, junior people, we all know that we can't hit outbound targets, right? And that's a mix of a lot of things. Again, it goes back to predictable revenue, some other things as well too. Here, I'll go back. I can see. Let me see. Don't worry. The slides will go out. Okay. So why? So then we said, okay, why? And I think we had almost 2,000 people respondents on this. Okay, well, why aren't we hitting our numbers? Okay, half said generic messaging. Right? Half. Right? We know, and I'm going to show you the senior title thing. That's where this gets really weird. And then a quarter of people said too focused on quantity. Well, of course we're focused on quantity. If we just do more activities, it equals more leads and more meetings, and then that's what we're supposed to do. Aaron Ross told us to do that, right? Now, he's revised his stance as well, too. So, but again, so we've got generic messaging and too focused on quantity. And now let's look at this. This is my favorite part. 50% versus 48% of senior executives were the ones who answered generic messaging. So more senior people, 50% said generic messaging. Guess what? You guys all control that. You control it. You know, like really think about that. Like you control it. 25%, almost identical, said too focused on quantity. You control it. If you know the problem is generic messaging and an over-focus on quantity, why do we keep doing this? Like, what is the point? Like, we all know it, and again, it's because we're continuing to try to fit this funnel construct for outbound of like, again, we hit the more button, right? And I'm not gonna I used to do this stuff too, so like I get it completely. But again, the answer to your funnel problems isn't always hammer the more button. It's not the answer, right? And to go to run a contest with your SDRs or sales team, okay, who can do 500 activities? Like, that's one way to do it. Maybe that is the right way. I don't know your business. But another way could be like, who can have the most conversations today? Right? And then we focus on like the first outcome, right? And that's what we're trying to push a lot of our clients to go to, is to stop focusing. We're okay with some like minimums. And by the way, almost none of you treat these really as minimums. These are like, you better hit this shit, or like, you know, like you're getting on PIP, right? Like these aren't like minimums. Let's be really honest here, okay? Like, so I'm okay with like some of that, but we're moving more of our clients to say, hey, we need to have X number of conversations, which means either they're getting us touching with the right person, or we're working on scheduling every day. If you can get there in 40 activities and she can get there in 10, who cares? Why do I care? You know, we're penalizing people. I mean, we're penalizing people who want to use video, who want to interact on LinkedIn, right? We're penalizing people who want to be creative and people who want to help to, you know, be more specific, get in the mind of their buyer, et cetera. So for us, the trends that we see in outbound, you know, obviously hybrid. You know, again, a lot of you are probably going back, you're doing events and different strategies that involve digital and physical touch points, and both, again, and I'll talk about omni-channel touch points as well, where email, call, LinkedIn, gifting, video, all of the above. Creativity. This is where I feel like, again, we've really failed a lot of our sales team. I feel like in the last 10 plus years, is like 2015 is when like Sales Loft and Outreach and these tools started to really come to fruition. And we continue to kind of not train our people enough on the buyers and shrink their creativity and try to do all of that for them. Like, you don't need to learn the buyer. I'm going to know the perfect template to put together, so then I can tell you how you should talk to the buyer. Like, well, what if we just told them how to talk to the buyer? And then they could be creative, and we gave them that experimentation and that freedom to do that, et cetera. And again, from the same report, 48% said we need to focus on quality over quantity. And so, again, it's not that these metrics don't matter, you know, by any stretch of the imagination. But I do want you all to think about how we're continuing to try to degrade. We're not trying to degrade the quality. I mean, obviously, look, if there's like some magic template where I'm like, you can get a 15% positive reply rate, like, and it's customer first name and industry that's generic, like, I would tell you, like, keep doing that. It's just not working, right, anymore. So omnichannel is where it's at. Omnichannel just means like a variety of touch points. So again, this is from McKinsey. 8 in 10 B2B leaders say omnichannel is more effective than traditional, which means like just call, or email. And here's the thing, and for a lot of you who are doing predominantly email-based outreach, here's kind of I think the difficult part. It's that it used to work. Like again, when these tools came out, like 2015, 2016, 17, email-only sequences crushed it. Because email wasn't as inundated. Like people weren't as inundated with emails in 2015, 2016, 2017. So it was the right thing to do. But the problem is, then we trained a generation of people who don't know how to pick up the phone. We stopped. How to have a conversation with someone, right? How to actually engage with someone. And so when we think about omnichannel, it's not that email's bad by any means. Email still is probably still a great component of it, but it's not the only component. Right? It's a mix of these types of things, right? And again, the issue, I think, is that we as sales leaders, and a lot of you as CEOs maybe too, you know, you grew up in a world where it was pretty basic. It's like, I call them day one, I email them day two, I call day three. It was pretty basic. Like, it just doesn't work anymore. I wish it did. I wish I could tell you that with just call-only sequences or email-only sequences, that you could be wildly successful, and there may be some of you who are, which is great. Don't listen to half of what I'm saying. Maybe take a little something here or there, just keep doing you, amazing. But for a lot of people, it's just we've got to get more complex, right? Jamie, I think Jamie's next. Jamie Shanks, I think, is next. He'll talk more about LinkedIn as well. We obviously talk a lot about LinkedIn. You know, if you're in B2B, and the funniest part is, you know, the number 9 industry, I think it's number 9 or number 8. Number 9 industry for active LinkedIn users is automotive. Automotive. My audience isn't on LinkedIn. If you're in B2B, there are some certain like sub-sectors, but I'm telling you, like LinkedIn during COVID, this is what their traffic did. Like this is what their unique visitors did. This is what their membership numbers did, right? 9 billion views, it's free, it's crazy, right? And so again, like the opportunity right now for all of you at the executive level and for your teams to be more active and engage is just, it's wild. And Jamie will talk more about that, so I won't steal his thunder. But I will say this, is that individuals, and for all of you, you might be nervous about getting involved, et cetera, the companies that we are seeing really doing well on LinkedIn, their executive team is also very active on LinkedIn, right? There's a company called Refine Labs, run by a buddy of mine. It's a marketing agency. He's infused this in his whole organization. He's scaled to almost 15 million in a year and a half, 2 years, right? There's Gong. How many of you are familiar with Gong, right? Okay, do you know what their last valuation was on top line? It's a lot, like absurd, okay? And how do you think that, like, yeah, the category's hot, but do you also not think that it's because they control that channel on LinkedIn? You see their COO post, their CEO, and then all their reps post. Most of you probably, like, again, like from a revenue standpoint, you know, like, it's not like they're like Salesforce or something like that, but they kind of appear like that. You know, they appear to be a lot bigger than they are. And so LinkedIn is a real opportunity for a lot of you. It's free. So I just encourage all of you to think about how to get more involved. So I'll show a couple of examples of like what are some of the sequences that our customers are running. So this one is a good one of like if they are active, so they do research. And this just kind of shows you a different omni-channel approach where day 1 might be email, LinkedIn Connect, day 3 call, day 5 personalized video, day 6 LinkedIn touch point, day 7 maybe video on LinkedIn. How many of you even knew that if you're a first degree connection with someone on LinkedIn, you can send them a personalized video directly? You can send them a voicemail. I could leave any of you a voicemail right now if we were a first degree connection. Right? There's all these different strategies to engage with people that are just like laying there and nobody's using them. But again, we keep going back to the same stuff because I can't track in my CRM that I sent Johnny a LinkedIn voicemail. I can't track that. Right? I can track it. So then instead, what does Johnny do? He sends an in-mail. Whew. Smoke, great strategy, right? No. I say, you're all lying. It's funny, we're laughing, but it's also true. Like, we know it. We know in-mails don't work, right? As well as direct messages. Again, no-shows. We've got people that are running sequences to decrease no-shows. Again, imagine if 2 days before our meeting, I sent you a 15-second video. Hey, John, I'm looking forward to the meeting. We're going to cover these 2 or 3 things. Who else should I include on the invite? Looking forward to it. Was that 15 seconds? You know, like, again, like, what do you think the show rate's going to be on that meeting, right? Versus a plain, cold, email sent. So again, there's a lot of different plays. Again, we're going to send this deck out too. And then a lot of this is like, so how do we manage this? You're like, Jake, this sounds confusing. And you all already, I mean, you're spending $1,500 a month per rep. You already have the tools to do it, right? You all already have sales engagement tools, right? Like I said, there's like 2,000 plus sales techs right now. I know it's a little overwhelming. If you want to see really overwhelming, go to the marketing room. It's like this times like 20. Like it's, but that's where we're headed. I mean, again, like just go look at what happened when Marketo and Pardot and all these tools started to come out. Like then it was a wave of these tools to track. We're going through that right now. That's exactly what's happening. So if you as leaders, the other advice that I give a lot of sales leaders right now, if you are outsourcing all your knowledge of these tools to your sales ops team, you're going to be in trouble in 5 or 10 years. You're going to be in trouble because you're not going to know how to build an efficient and effective sales organization, and you're going to still keep doing the same things that you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and the game's different. You're going to continue to build sales organizations and think about, how am I going to get to my number? Well, it's this beautiful spreadsheet that shows a hiring waterfall with 33% attrition that goes like this. Or I could get 30% more effective with my own team and just do this. And invest in technology. And for all of you, understand what these tools can do, right? If you don't have a functional understanding of like, oh wait, usually I was doing it this way. I always built my sales teams and I'd have them do this part of the process. It's like, you can automate all that right now. Like, you don't need to have an email go or anything like that. These tools actually talk to each other. And again, you don't have to have all the knowledge. You don't need to be technical. You don't need to get certified. But you need to understand what these tools are capable of, and it's evolving really quickly. Right? It's tough for me to keep up. I take 2 to 3 demos with companies like this every week just to see what's out there. I was on, actually, the irony is Jamie Shanks, who you're talking to next, I was on a call with him on Tuesday with our team talking about his product. Like, just because this is where it's at. This is, like, understanding the power of these tools is what's going to allow you to run a more modern outbound process, right, as a part of this. So there's lots of tech, right? Lots of that, et cetera. Again, these are really the core pieces of tech, and then I'm going to turn it over some Q&A. One, do I have a clean way to get data? Not. Next, do I have a way to organize and track my sequences, right? Whether you're using any of these sales engagement tools, I don't really care which one, as long as you're using one. And then do I have a way to optimize my machine? Most of you in this room are optimizing your outbound strategies like every 6 months, once a year. You're doing some small tweaks. Again, if I went over there, and let's say you're spending $200,000 a month on your SDR team, if I went over to that room and I said, hey, you're spending $200,000 a month on Google AdWords, and you're going to spend $0 to optimize that in real time. Be like, are you insane? But you all are pumping tens of thousands of data points through tools on a weekly basis, and you're not optimizing in real time? It's archaic. Like, we have the tools. We can track this stuff. Why aren't you adjusting your sequences and your strategies on a weekly or at least monthly basis? And that's where we as sales leaders, I think about outbound, we've got to move faster. We've got to start to adapt more of a performance-based mindset, both on our sales process and outbound. And the technology is what's going to help us to do that. These are some of our partners, Outreach, Sendosa. Again, these are just there's no I don't know. As long as you're using somebody in a lot of these categories, I'm happy. ZoomInfo is obviously great. SalesLoft, there's a million. But as long as you have tools to do that. And so lastly, and I'll turn it over to some Q&A, is just, we have to start to think about whether it's on the outbound process, how we're showing up, right? Again, are we being in the places our customers are, or are we just sending a bunch of generic messages, mailing it in, and keeping our fingers crossed, even though we know generic messaging is the problem, right? How are we showing up on the sales call? Again, going back, step one is how is your outbound team? How's your inbound team? How are they showing up for the customer? Are they showing up ready to understand, okay, where are you at in the process? Let's have a dialogue here. Or are they showing up ready to just bant me, ready to medic me, right? Are they qualification? They don't know enough about the buyer to have a decent conversation. The SDR role wasn't created to purely qualify. It was created to have a conversation with people, not to just appointment set, right? And then how do we show up? That, again, I really feel like we've made the sales process unnecessarily boring virtually because we just aren't thinking about, we're not going back to face, so what's the next best thing? And technology, right? And this to me is the big one for all of you in this room. If I was, I am a sales leader of sorts, but getting certified on a tool like Outreach or SalesLoft or Groove or High Velocity Sales or Insert Other, it's not a bad investment of 6 hours. Just to understand, wait, my team can do what? And we're doing this? I just feel like if more sales leaders really just took step 2 or 3, don't just sit through the demo and be like, I got more important stuff. You could find productivity tweaks in your org of 10, 20, 30% and not have to hire another person. And so again, as we think about scaling sales in particular and outbound, these ideas of understanding just what these techs can do and just staying abreast with it. Again, even some of these tools, I got to go through another demo every 6 to 12 months because I'm oh wait, it can do this now? So it's not just a set it and forget it. Oh, my sales ops person does that. You won't know how to think about structuring your team if you don't have a functional working knowledge of these tools. So that's what's up. Virtual selling, modern engagement. And so we'll get into some Q&A. If you all want to download this is our modern outbound playbook. We do this every 6 months. So every 6 months, we go in, we talk to top performing SDRs at organizations with our clients, and we basically just give away the plays that they're doing that are working. And so y'all can take a look at that. And questions. So that's what's up. That's it. That's all I got. Questions? Yes.
What kind of advice do you have for a sales leader who has historically only done inbound and doesn't know where to start on outbound?
Yeah, it's a great question. One, that's awesome. That's awesome. If you've gotten to this place and you've only done inbound, it's great. I'll tell you what, it's a heck of a lot easier than what a lot of companies do, which is the other way. They start wanting to get outbound figured out, and then they figure out inbound. So what I would tell you is this. Who you should be targeting in outbound is already buried in your current customer base. Meaning, the first thing that I would do if I was going to outbound, I would do a customer analysis of the segments that all my inbound customers were coming into. What are the sub-industries within those segments? Company size, revenue, et cetera. And then wherever the biggest concentrations are, that's where I would go outbound. So to me, like you already have the data of who you should probably try to target. It's already buried in your customer data. And the next piece of advice, there's a great book by a guy, Jeff Moore, called Crossing the Chasm. I don't know how many of you have read that book. A lot of heads. Yeah, it's oldie but goodie. He's redone it a couple times. But he talks about this concept of when you're really breaking a market, you form beachheads. And I think what we see is a lot of time when companies go outbound, they're like, well, we could sell to fintech companies and HR. Like there's like 17 segments that they could sell because it kind of sucks to limit your market. The reality is like, now that I understand who my customers are, go narrow first. Who are the people that fit that innovator or early adopter category versus like these people could buy from us, and focus your early efforts there. Form those beachheads. Your current customer, like people are already telling you that, hey, I'm a potential hand raiser. Yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah, so his question, if you couldn't hear, was basically what are other metrics to track at the top of the funnel that could be a proxy to still help you to measure, let's call it like early stage output or success of a team that isn't just did I complete an activity, et cetera. So again, I've touched on it briefly. With most of our clients, again, we're going to this concept of meaningful conversations before meetings. So instead of saying, hey, Johnny, you need to make 200 activities today. And again, if you still want to have like a call minimum or something of like, hey, this week you need to make 100 calls, like that's fine. But it's more so of like, hey, this week we know to set a meeting, we need to talk to 3 people, or we need to have 3 conversations. I'd rather my team get focused on, hey, did I have a conversation with 3 or 4 people? And guess what? Today, it took me 75 activities to get to those 3 or 4 conversations. Tomorrow, it took me 25 activities to get those conversations. And again, meaningful conversations we define as you have the person engaged and you're kind of trying to set up a meeting time, or you've talked to someone else who's kind of putting you in touch with the right person. And I'd rather my team focus on doing that every day. Go out and do 5 of those things. Get someone to engage to set up a meeting with you, or get someone to get you to the right person, versus make 40 activities. And getting them aligned on like, this is a results job, not a button push job. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this is a much bigger like marketing sales alignment conversation too. Most companies right now are using a mix of like either the CRM, or more and more companies are using different like data warehouses as well too, where they're basically pushing a lot of like their customer use base or even website use to like some type of SQL database, and then using more like advanced reporting and like Tableau, Domo, Insert data visualization tools. I think the bigger thing to think about is right now, because sales and marketing usually aren't aligned compensation-wise, what we don't really ever think about is the holistic customer journey. That we really have marketing focused on top of funnel versus like holistic throughout. We have sales focused on this engagement, and the amount of companies that do a really good job of then returning people after a sequence back into the right is minimal. So it's like, right now there's like a big issue. So if I were gonna sit down with my counterpart in marketing, I'd say, hey, let's go spend 4 hours and let's walk through the 2 or 3 different ways that customers move through our process, and how can I work with you on sales to help to get these people into the process, and then automate. Again, there's different ways that you can, hey, someone raises a hand as a flag, I can then use automation rules to push them into sales sequences when they're warm or they're hand raisers, and then I can use the same sales engagements. Once these people finish, I'm gonna send them back into marketing. So I think I would sit down with my marketing counterpart and let's map the customer journey. Let's find ways that we can keep people engaged for forever, and think about, as a sales leader, what are the things that I can automate, as opposed to, hey, someone raises their hand and we send them an email. Well, let's just put them into this sequence. Oh, then they took this action. Let's put them into that sequence. So I would sit down with my marketing counterpart and just say, how do we create a customer journey to where one of us is always working them? Yeah.
So I saw in the omni-channel sort of cadence structure that you set up, we use video, LinkedIn. I'm curious, have you also leveraged text messaging, and is there a platform that you would recommend?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So we suggest text messaging like after first engagement. Like right now, I mean now there are parts of like APAC, et cetera, where text is just like where 99% of it goes down. Like, it's WhatsApp groups. It's WhatsApp groups. Like Outreach and some of these other ones, they have like a Twilio integration to where you can do texting. Like our recommendation isn't to do texting at the top of the funnel, top of the funnel, but maybe once somebody is engaged. That's how, we used to talk about this with teams. I know that you're in a deal if you're texting with the customer. If you are going back and forth via text, you're in the deal, right? Because they're not going to have given you your cell phone number potentially. So, for us, I would say to me it's more, post-meeting one, I think it can be used. And current customer, I think would be a strong one. And then there's some other tools like Front that allow you to do, they're much more like phone and text, like automation heavy. And Twilio has some cool stuff too. There's probably a bunch more, but yeah, I'm a big fan of text message once you get initial engagement, right? Like let's say you get someone to respond on LinkedIn, oh, hey, cool, I know you're on the road, I'll text you some blah, blah, blah. I could get down with that, right? After they respond something positive, but it's a great medium. I mean, this is good. Your phone, I mean, obviously we're getting more and more spam on our phone than we used to, but the cell phone is still kind of the last frontier for spam. So if you get on that other side of it, you're in a good spot. Man, yeah, it's fun that this is becoming a topic. I mean, so I grew up, that's the world I grew up, right? So I grew up in a world where, and it was bullshit. Like, we definitely make fake dials, and so would my teams. Like, 100 cold calls, I had to make 100 calls a day and 2.5 hours of talk time, right? And side note, I remember I had this rep, I caught him, he had like a fake dial list that he would give new hires so people could like hit their minimums. Because it was absolutely ridiculous. There'd be a day you run 4 meetings, and then like, why didn't you hit your 100 dials? Like, I have 4 hours of talk time. I just ran 4 meetings. Like, why? So anyway, I digress. So I grew up, that's the world I grew up in. It was like I had to set my own meetings, close my own deals, and then work my own accounts. And this is like mid-market. I don't know if it matters. I think you can have both. I think that the reason that people are really interested more and more in this dual going back is because the quality of the conversations SDRs are able to have is so terrible. If the SDR could have a really engaged conversation with the buyer, like, hey, I know you're trying to do this. Tell me a little bit more. Like, if I feel like if we invested more time in up-leveling the skill set of the SDR and then making the handoff fun. Oh, based on what you said, actually, Linda is really good at that. I'm going to pair you up with her, and I'm going to set a conversation up for us next week. So I really feel like, and then, of course, if you eliminate that, then the AE can do it all, and you don't have to worry about it. So if your SDRs are going to continue to have low-quality conversations that are focused on qualification only, then you're not adding a lot of value. Then maybe the full cycle could be the right. But then again, if they get on the phone with the salesperson and that salesperson also is trying to qualify them the whole time, then that's also going to be a bad thing. And I think it also depends on the quality of your leads or the first conversations. Maybe there's a triage path, like this group. Like what we're seeing more and more teams is eliminating their inbound SDR team or eliminating like a big chunk of their inbound SDR team. And it's like the inbound SDR team takes these kind of conversations and everyone else goes straight to sales. So, it's all about the quality of conversation. I think you could do it either way. And then what can you make the cost of sale work? Can you make the cost of sale work to where it's, fits in line with your target CAC or whatever you need it to be? So I don't have a strong opinion. I just think that it all comes down to the quality conversation. All right.
Thanks. We have this ongoing conversation about marketing acquired leads versus qualified leads, and as a business, we're bad at doing anything really effective with the MALs. Right?
Yeah. What are those like people that like download something or
they
attended a webinar?
Exactly.
Oh, hot lead.
They came.
Hot lead.
They downloaded
like
a
all
white
you guys
paper.
like, oh yeah, hot. Like, come on, man.
Yep. Downloaded a
Hot
white
lead.
paper or something else, some basic interaction, and if we turn those over to the BDRs or even to the full sales cycle, the chance that they're going to turn that into anything meaningful is virtually zero.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, do you see that as, hey, that's more on marketing to take those and continue to build a relationship with those, or is that a sales thing, or how do we take advantage of it? Because they are saying, hey, I'm interested in what you do in some way.
They're interested in like the topic.
Yeah, fair.
So the question was around, well, he had a mic this time, so now I don't need to repeat it. And I'm at time, so this will be my last question. So his question was around nurturing. And so the answer is both, meaning if somebody is just the only intent, we use a tool called Sales Wings. There's a million like intent-based lead tools that you can use. And then there's other third-party lead, like didn't 6 Sense doing some later? Did I see that? Like 6 Sense. So what we would do is combine what we call this first-party data, which is data you have that they interacted with something that's proprietary to you, and third-party intent data, like a 6 Sense, to say once someone trips over X, then we automatically put them in this sequence for the BDRs. Until they do that, that's marketing's job. Marketing's job is to get them to the hand raise point, or to like almost to the hand raise point. So I would say it's both. That marketing should be handling getting people to a certain threshold, and then using a mix of third-party and first-party, call it data. Once people achieve a lead score, again, we use this tool called Sales Wing. It's really basic. And then like once you hit 68, boom, then you go to BDR land. Cool. All right, awesome. Thanks, guys.